We have with us Sheila Davies, who's running for the office of mayor of Kill Devil Hills against the current incumbent Ray Sturza. You are running against incumbent mayor Ray Sturza. What issues or concerns caused you to enter the race and ask the voters to replace the current mayor?
Great. Well, first, I'd like to say that what really prompted me to seek the mayor's seat is the fact that right now I do not believe that our citizens are really connected with the leadership. And I don't believe that we can be a thriving, great town unless we have that connection. One of the biggest issues is that I don't believe the current board has been effective in looking at all of the implications of the decisions that they're making. For example, most recently they adopted a new noise ordinance and they made modifications to the existing one. Well, unfortunately, I don't think they realized it. Well, I know they didn't realize it until after the meeting. The language that they chose to adopt actually extended the noise that could go on in a residential environment till 10 p.m., where it used to be 6 p.m. But it was the language that was crafted ended up not allowing that. So they didn't realize the implications. And technically what that would mean now is if I was in my home, someone could be using their lawnmower up till 10 o'clock at night or building a house next door to me. Another example was back with the height restriction discussions and meetings. The board actually adopted changes to the land use plan and took away the concrete numbers of 42 and 50 and put in jargon that described keeping a low profile on the ocean front. And it wasn't until the citizens brought this to the attention of Commissioner Buskey, and he basically brought it to the commissioners and forced them to change that. So and the citizens need a government that's going to be looking at all of those implications before they make a decision.
Okay.
And they need to work with the citizens to do that.
The board's decision to approve the Lowe's application was controversial in the community. How would you have handled the situation differently, and do you feel the town could have prevailed in a lawsuit had Lowe's application been denied?
Well, first I'd like to make clear that I am not anti-development or anti-Lowe's or anti-business. I think it's nice when a new business comes to the area with the potential of creating new jobs and increased revenue. The fundamental issue with Lowe's was the way the Board of Commissioners handled the citizens and handled the residents and the input. The town was informed back in March of 2010 of Lowe's intention of coming to Kill Devil Hills or possibly purchasing the Meekins tract. And it was about 6 months later when the citizens actually learned of that in a public forum. During that time, over that 6 months, there were 2 zoning codes that were put in place, or changes to the zoning codes. One basically allowed more lot coverage by using pervious concrete, and the other allowed for sign size expansion. And this was even noted in the attorney's letter that this actually would help the development of Lowe's. So all of this really created skepticism by the community and by the public, and they also had grave concerns that the commissioners had reached their decision on Lowe's long before they even brought it to the citizens to have input. The other thing that was frustrating, certainly to me, was it seemed this was inconsistent with the 1997 land use plan and the 2007 public opinion plan. Both of those noted, really didn't want the box stores and not for the big development. So I think this could have been handled differently on many levels. One, getting the citizens part of the discussion early on, not waiting 6 months down the road where all this skepticism and concern of not having an open government surfaced. 2 is kind of goes to an overall thing of really developing a culture, fostering a culture where you really welcome citizen input and engagement. Unfortunately, sitting through some of these meetings, the board got hostile even in the responses back to the citizens expressing their frustration. Certainly there are going to be times people disagree, but we need to make sure that the board is maintaining a professional rapport.
Kill Devil Hills has put the issue of beach nourishment on the table. Do you support this effort, and how do you view the early results from NACSA?
Now is definitely not the time for Kill Devil Hills to be looking at any type of tax increase to fund beach nourishment. And unfortunately, since we don't have the money just sitting there to do any type of beach nourishment, this isn't the time, in my opinion, to be doing anything specifically with putting sand on the beach. I think we're in a fortunate position to be able to watch what happens in Nags Head. I don't think the recent storm really showed us anything. It wasn't a beach storm. I think we need to use the next 5 to 10 years to see what happens and study and learn for that. That doesn't mean to say that I don't think we should be doing anything right now. I think there's a couple of things that would be very responsible for us to do as a town. And one of those is to look at a retreat plan. And if you're not going to nourish, eventually you're probably put in a position of having to deal with retreat. And we don't have a plan right now on how we would address that in Kildable Hills. We also do not have a catastrophic loss or recovery plan. And I think that is essential. Specifically, what that would uncover is if or when, unfortunately, there is a major storm that wipes out the oceanfront, changes the way the structure, the land looks, takes out a lot of our tax base. How do we recover from that? What is the long-term implication? The time to be assessing what we do and determining is now, not when we're going through the emotional toil and devastation. So I think those are two things that we need to be working on now. Since it's not the time, we don't have the money to do the beach nourishment.
You mentioned taxes in your last answer, so that's a natural segue into my next question. Do you see any scenarios where property taxes might be raised during your term?
I would love to be able to look the citizens of Kildable Hills in the eyes and say, I'm going to guarantee no new taxes, but that would be irresponsible. The future, we can't predict what's going to happen. There's a couple of things on the horizon that could affect this. One, in 2013, we're up for a tax reevaluation, and while certainly it states that should be revenue neutral, that can have an impact in what happens affecting our tax base. Certainly the economy is still slow. Can't predict what's going to happen and when people are going to recover. What I can in complete confidence say is that I have 18 years of budget experience and will be looking and using that experience to keep expenses down, looking at ways we can trim the budget, and also looking at ways we can increase revenue, whether it's through grants, or certainly I think one thing that we should do, if not have already done, is approach the county and looking at a different allocation or a different formula for using shared revenue. I think right now the formula that's used has towns competing with one another on raising taxes. And I think we need a new formula that would be more stable and that would be focused on or based on what towns are, the demands of the towns and the resources, and not fostering this competition of, I've got to raise my rates because my neighbor raised their rates this year.
Obviously, if you're elected mayor, you're going to bring some new ideas, new blood, some differences to the office of mayor. What are those going to be?
My biggest objectives in bringing to the town as mayor is to increase citizen engagement, create a shared vision for the future of our town, and ensure that we have a responsive government in Kildable Hills. I think the heart of any good government is an engaged citizenry that's informed. And right now that's lacking in Kildable Hills. I don't think we have the right culture. I don't think it's welcoming and encouraging. And I have a proven track record, whether it's with the YMCA or with Dare County or with Admiral Health, of bringing people together to reach solutions that benefit communities. And that's what I'll bring to Kildable Hills. There's several ways we can increase citizen engagement. One of the first things is let's televise our meetings. It's certainly not feasible to expect that the average person can make it out 2 times a month at 7 o'clock. But if they could watch the meetings at a later time that's convenient for them and their family, we can have more informed and engaged citizens. The town of Kildable Hills has possessed the capability of doing this for nearly a year, and I think it's time that we start doing that. I also think it's important to develop citizen advisory committees. Those are committees that can actually help give their input or give the public's input. Input can be funneled into these advisory committees, and then they can share reports with the board on issues that are important to their specific community within Kildable Hills. Another big thing I mentioned was creating a shared vision. I use the analogy, imagine building a house without knowing what you want it to look like. It's impossible. So how can we expect our town to know what we should do and what we shouldn't do if we really don't know what our vision is for Kill Devil Hills? I think it's important to work with the residents and the business owners and other stakeholders to really come together and figure out what it is that we, Kill Devil Hills, want to look like. What do we want to foster and be known as being in the Outer Banks? Well, I certainly have proven professional and leadership experience. I think the greatest asset that I bring to the table is my ability to listen and bring people together in a collaborative environment to reach win-win solutions for the community. And that's what I will do for Kill Devil Hills.
All right, and we just want to remind our readers that this was Sheila Davies, who is running for the office of Mayor of Kill Devil Hills. Her opponent is the incumbent Mayor, Ray Sturza. And Sheila, thank you so much for coming and giving the Voice readers a chance to listen to what you have to say.
Russ, thank you very much for hosting this interview and the Voice for setting this up. And I think this is a great way to hear in our voice why we're interested in doing what we're doing. So thank you.
Well, thank you. You're welcome. Thank you again.